One team I spoke on earlier this season was the Phoenix Suns and the potential they had if they can get their starting lineup healthy and stay on the court together. Well, with the Suns having now won 5 straight games, it's time we revisit the team because there's still one major problem, or really two major problems, that the team needs to address before the trade deadline on February 8th, or else they'll risk wasting another season. If you guys enjoyed the video though, then make sure to give it a like, and if you're new to the channel, then make sure to hit that subscribe button. Last night, the Phoenix Suns won their 5th straight game, as pointed out in the intro, as they beat the Indiana Pacers, who were without Tyrese Halliburton, by a score of 117-110. Without Halliburton, you'd expect this Phoenix Suns team, who currently have the best defensive 5-man lineup in the entire NBA, to have won by more than 7 points. But this brings us to our first and probably biggest issue that the Suns have this season, and that is their bench. As you can see here, the starting lineup the Pacers sent out last night was terrible, as no player had a positive plus-minus rating in the 8 minutes played together. That group had a terrible negative 42.2 net rating when on the court together. The Pacers bench, however, saw every single player finish with a positive net rating, so the bench group clearly kept them in the game last night. On the other side of things, it's almost exactly the opposite. The Phoenix Suns starting unit saw all 5 starters finish with a positive net rating, and nearly every single bench player who saw the court finish with a negative net rating. The only bench player who finished with a positive net rating is Eric Gordon, and that actually makes sense. Why does it make sense, you might ask? Well, remember how I mentioned earlier this season that I felt the team needed to get healthy to see their true potential? While that still is true, the Suns lineup with the best defensive rating of any 5-man group that's played at least 100 minutes together actually happens to be the lineup with Eric Gordon on the court instead of Beal. That's right, scrolling through every 5-man lineup in the NBA that's played over 100 minutes together, we can see the group of Durant, Gordon, Nurkic, Booker, and Allen have the best defensive rating in the entire NBA, and I kept scrolling past the lineups under 100 minutes just to double check. However, even if we look at the minutes with Beal replacing Eric Gordon, that Suns lineup still has a positive 14.2 net rating opposed to the 21.9 net rating the one with Gordon has, even despite their defensive rating with Beal being 116 versus the 100.3 defensive rating they have with Beal on the court. So it seems their biggest issue just happens to be their bench. Looking at bench net ratings for the entire league, the Phoenix Suns bench has the 6th worst rating in the entire NBA. That's definitely not going to make it any easier for them to crawl out of the play-in tournament and grab a top 6 seed for the postseason. There's also one major issue the team has. If we look at the team's average first quarter margin, the Phoenix Suns outscored their opponents by 1 point through the first 12 minutes of play, coming in with the 10th best in the league in that regard. Going further and looking at first half net margins, the Suns have the 6th best net margin in the NBA this season for the first half, outscoring their opponents by an average of 3.1 points in the first half of games. However, things get scary for them in the second half. The Phoenix Suns this season have the 9th worst net rating in the second half of games in the league. It gets even scarier for the Suns if we look at their average team margin in the 4th quarter, as the Suns have the worst 4th quarter margin of any team in the entire league this season, getting outscored by 3.2 points in the final quarter of play per game. They're on the up a bit over these last 3 games, so maybe that's a positive for them. But I think looking at their total stats for the season, changes clearly need to be made, specifically to their bench unit, as it's bringing down the entire team and bringing down their top 6 guys who have been absolutely efficient when on the court. With NBA lineups typically shrinking down to 8 or 9 players come playoff time, it'll be interesting to see how this will affect the Suns if they make no changes. But clearly the evidence is there that they need to make a few roster changes prior to 3 p.m. Eastern Time on February 8th. With Kevin Durant being one of the key voices in the Suns' decision-making, which has been obvious since he arrived there, especially when the team signed his former teammate in the offseason, Yuta Watanabe, maybe Durant should tell the front office to give his former team a call once again, as another one of his former teammates, Royce O'Neal, could be a relatively big pickup for the Suns, or maybe even a guy who arrived in Brooklyn 4 days before Durant was traded, Dorian Finney-Smith. There's clearly going to be a lot of players available in the trade market who could help the Phoenix Suns and bolster their bench and lineup. The only question comes down to, with the Suns having 14 outgoing draft picks and every one of their first-round picks either traded away or with the potential to be swapped by another team, how many assets do the Suns truly have to be traded away for players? The Suns clearly have a great core group of guys, but from what we looked at today, I'm sure you can clearly see they need to make tweaks around the edges of their roster, or this will be yet another wasted season in Phoenix. Anyway though, let me know in the comments what you think about the Phoenix Suns, any players, or any topics I talked about today. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, then make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'm SCJ, and I am out. Peace.